What is up, bros and broettes? I'm Ink Slasher, and today we are comparing two shotguns in Versus. Versus is a series where we compare, generally speaking, two weapons to see which one is better and make you a better Call of Duty player. Today we are looking at the Haymaker, a fully automatic shotgun, versus the Brecci, a semi-automatic shotgun that actually has a very, very solid range. So this is going to be an interesting comparison, and without further ado, let's get into it. So as far as damage goes, it's a little bit different when we look at shotguns. There's actually two components to damage, so therefore we're going to hand out 2 points for it. First of all is the base damage of the weapon. So the base damage for the Haymaker is 42 up close, 40 at mid-range, 24 at long range, whereas the Broccoli shotgun is 50 damage up close, 40 at mid-range, and 33 at long range. So obviously the damage profile for the Broccoli shotgun is better at short range, extremely short range, and long range. So 50 damage up close, 33 at long range, compared to 42 damage up close, 24 at long range. So obviously the Brecci gets +1 point. So yeah, for shotguns, there's actually two damage stats. So there's that base damage stat that we just talked about, that if none of you have heard this before, sounds extremely, extremely low. But then there's this second part, and the second part is damage per pellet. So both of these shotguns have 8 pellets, and the damage per pellet is actually 2 damage per pellet for the Broccoli shotgun and 1 bonus damage for the Haymaker. So for every pellet that hits for the Brecci, you get +2 damage. For every pellet that hits for the Haymaker, you get +1 damage. And there's a little bit of a caveat with the Brecci. If you get a headshot, that pellet does 1.4 times damage. No other shotgun has that. This is a very, very high headshot multiplier for the Brecci. But because it has more damage per pellet, the Brecci gets another +1 point. And just to clear that up with the whole pellet damage kind of thing, what this means is for the Brecci, it's always going to be a 2 to 3 shot kill. With the Haymaker, it's always going to be a 2 to a 4 shot kill. But to get a 2 bullet kill, both shots you take, all 8 pellets have to hit, which is actually extremely rare, which means pretty much always for the Haymaker, you are going to be getting a 3 to a 4 shot kill. So as far as fire rate goes, the Brecci or Broccoli shotgun is a semi-automatic shotgun, which means every time you want to fire a bullet, you have to pull that trigger. The Haymaker is fully automatic. So as far as fire rates goes, the Brecci fire rate is 187 RPM and the Haymaker is 300. This is pretty much what you expect, and always expect the Brecci fire rate to actually be a little bit slower than that, because again, you have to pull that trigger every single time, which means you are probably not going to nail that 187 fire rate right on unless you use the gun like all the time and can just nail that spot on, but that'd be very, very rare. So overall, the Haymaker has a much better fire rate, giving it +1 point. The next stat we can look at is aim down sights time. So for the Brecci, the aim down sights time is 0.25 seconds, and for the Haymaker is 0.2 seconds. This means you can aim down sights just a little bit faster with the Haymaker, and that's kind of important because I feel like it's a lot more important to be on target with the Haymaker just because it takes more bullets to kill, which means generally you just want to be on target that much faster, just so that way you can get bullets on target that much faster. And so that's a good thing for the Haymaker, and for that it gets +1 point. So when I make these videos, a lot of people find one stat that I talk about really not important. Meanwhile, I find it very important, especially with weapons like these, and that's magazine size. Now, magazine size is especially important with these weapons because with these weapons, you're going to be expelling a lot of ammo, because if you miss a shot or anything like that, you're generally spamming with these weapons. These are not weapons you're going to try to be especially accurate with. Generally speaking, you're just trying to get as many bullets out of these guns as fast as possible on whatever target you can get onto. So as far as magazine size goes for these weapons, for the Brecci or Broccoli, you are looking at 12 bullets in a magazine, whereas the Haymaker is 16 bullets in a magazine. Also, as far as the Brecci goes, you start with 48 bullets, and for the Haymaker, you start with 64 bullets. So you have a lot more bullets to deal with when looking at the Haymaker. I know the magazine size isn't a crazy difference, but it's definitely a 4 bullet difference, and that is huge when looking at these two weapons, especially considering the fire rate for the Haymaker is faster, so it's super important to have that extra bullet reserve. So for that, the Haymaker is also getting +1 point and takes the lead. So the next stat we're going to talk about is range. Now, range is a little bit confusing because of the different damage profiles, because of the different amount of pellets you hit. So based on the amount of pellets you hit, it changes the damages, it changes the range, so it's a little bit confusing. So how we're going to talk about this is we're going to talk about the ranges based on the base damages. So what do I mean by that? So the highest rate of damage is 50 up close for the Brecci and 42 up close for the Haymaker. So the range profiles for this is 400 in-game units for the Brecci and 150 in-game units for the Haymaker, so much lower for that. The second damage profile is 40 for both weapons. This drops off at 500 in-game units for the Brecci and 150 in-game units and 300 in-game units, actually 303 in-game units for the Haymaker. So again, much better for the Brecci. And finally, the damage drop-off range is exactly the same for both weapons. So again, the furthest damage profile is 33 for the Brecci and 24 for the Haymaker. Now this drops off for both weapons at 600 in-game units. So after 600 in-game units, you will not deal any damage whatsoever at any range further than that. So because of this, the Brecci actually has a better range at short range and mid range, and for that gets +1 point. We have reached a tie, and we still have a couple stats to look at. The first of which is the reload speed. Now the reload speed is actually identical for both of these weapons. So it is 2.4 seconds when you have bullets still in the magazine and 3.1 seconds when the magazine is 100% empty. So exactly the same for both weapons, so no points we can give out there. Now the next thing I thought I was going to be able to give out points for was actually the hip spread, and I figured that the hip spread was better for the Brecci because when I use the Brecci, I never aim down sights. When I use the Haymaker, I actually very frequently aim down sights, but guess what? It's exactly the same for both weapons. In fact, the KRM actually has the identical hip spread of these weapons as well. So again, we can't give out points for that, even though I thought I could. Then the final thing we can look at is time to kill, and generally speaking, time to kill is the most important stat for most of these versus episodes. But again, this is very hard to calculate because you are going to be dealing different damages every time you pull the trigger, depending on the amount of pellets you hit for whatever shotgun you're using. So that makes it very hard to calculate, but we can calculate it in a different way. We can calculate it with bullets to kill instead of damage profiles. But how this ends up working is, since every single at every single range, the bullets to kill is better for the Brecci, it always ends up winning, even though the fire rate is faster for the Haymaker. So I figured it wasn't really fair to do that either. So I can't have this finish in a tie. I hate ties. Ties are stupid, so I'm going to do two things. First of all, I'm going to give my personal opinion, and I know you guys hate when I do this because it's super biased, and I 100% agree with that. But the second thing I'm going to do is ask you to write in the comment section below, which one of these weapons do you prefer? I'm going to read all the comments and hopefully reply to many of them. So write down below which one you prefer and why. Why is the most important part and the part I find most interesting. So go ahead, leave a sentence, leave a paragraph down there. I'll read them all. But my opinion. So my opinion for these weapons is that the Brecci is actually much better. First of all, the less bullets to kill is good at every single range. So whatever range you are at, you're going to be using less bullets with the Brecci. So that's super important. Also the range. I find the range oodles better with the broccoli shotgun. When you're shooting across the room, generally speaking, with that Haymaker, you're going to be dealing with a 4-bullet kill, which is a pain in the ass, whereas across the room, sometimes you're getting a 2-bullet kill with the Brecci, which is absolutely fantastic, and I find that much more consistent. And I said before that I found the hip spread better. I know it's not, but I never aim down sights with the Brecci. It's better just to get your bullets on target because the base damage with the Brecci is higher, which means just getting a bullet on target is better than getting many pellets on target. Also, you're getting a headshot multiplier, so any pellets that hit the head, you're doing more damage with that. Now, I know the fire rate's better on the Brecci, the aim down sight speed is better on the Brecci, but I find those stats much less important. Now, overall, I just find the Brecci much more consistent, and that's why I tend to choose that one every single time. But like I said, let me know what you think. As far as my opinion goes, I'm going to add +1 point to the Brecci. I always do better with it. I find it more consistent, and that's why it is going to be the winner this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm really curious. If you enjoyed the video, found it informative, hit that like button. It really does help out the channel. So if you could hit that like button, it'd be super greatly appreciated. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. I upload Call of Duty videos every single day of the week except for Sunday. And finally, thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, peace out.